As the ashes of World War II settled, casting long shadows over a world weary from years of conflict, a sinister undercurrent began to surface. The year is 1945, and the fall of the Third Reich has left in its wake a trail of notorious war criminals scrambling like rats fleeing a sinking ship. Amidst this murky backdrop emerges a relentless hunter, a beacon of justice in a world grappling with the horrors of the Holocaust. Simon Wiesenthal himself, a survivor of Nazi concentration camps, dedicates his life to tracking down those who orchestrated the genocide. Are we ready to confront the uncomfortable truths of the post-war years, to explore the dark corridors of escape? Despite being partially damaged during the war, the trials were conducted in four major categories: crimes against peace, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and a novel legal concept, conspiracy to commit the aforementioned crimes. The defendants included high-ranking military officials, politicians, industrialists, and physicians, each accused of participating in the systematic murder of millions during the Holocaust and other war crimes. Among the accused were figures like Wilhelm Keitel, Alfred Jodl, and Ernst Kaltenbrunner, 24 of the most prominent. Nazis faced the International Military Tribunal, among them notorious figures like Hermann Göring, Rudolf Hess, and Joachim von Ribbentrop. The Nuremberg Code laid the foundation for modern medical ethics and the protection of human subjects in research. Despite some criticisms regarding the trial's legal basis and claims of victorious justice, the Nuremberg Trials were groundbreaking in establishing that individuals and not just states could be held accountable for war crimes. The exact founding date of Odessa is unknown, but it is believed to have been operational by 1946. Simultaneously, the Ratlines, a network of escape routes, extended like a spider's web across Europe, leading to safe havens in countries like Argentina, Brazil, and Chile. Another notorious fugitive was Josef Mengele, the Angel of Death, infamous for his inhumane medical experiments at Auschwitz. Mengele found refuge in South America, eluding capture for the rest of his life. However, the extent of institutional involvement is still unclear. The most popular destination for these fugitives was Argentina under the presidency of Juan Perón, who, driven by a mix of pragmatic. The onset of the Cold War saw former Nazis being courted by both the West and the East for their intelligence and expertise, further complicating efforts to bring them to justice. Initiated by the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency in 1945, Operation Paperclip aimed to leverage the scientific advancements of Nazi Germany, particularly in aerospace and rocketry. In the cloak and dagger world of post-war espionage and scientific rivalry, these German scientists, some of whom were former Nazis, were seen as crucial assets in countering the Soviet threat. Led by individuals like Major General Hugh Nunn, the operation navigated through a moral minefield, balancing the exigencies of the Cold War with the dark histories of their recruits. The operation raised profound questions about the balance between moral accountability and strategic necessity. Critics like Senator J. William Fulbright argued against employing individuals with dubious pasts, emphasizing the moral cost of such decisions. The impact of these German scientists on U.S. technology was undeniable. Their work was instrumental in the development of the Saturn V rocket, which ultimately enabled the Apollo moon landings. Von Braun, in particular, became a prominent figure in NASA, serving as the director of the operation's name, Paperclip, derived from the paper clips used to attach the scientists' new profiles to their Nazi Party membership and SS affiliations, effectively sanitizing their pasts. His legacy, however, is a dichotomy of scientific achievement and complicity in wartime atrocities. The shadows of their past never fully disappeared. Throughout their careers in the United States, these scientists carried with them the complexities and contradictions of their earlier affiliations and actions. Operation Paperclip remains a nuanced and contentious chapter in history, embodying the Cold War era's moral ambiguities and strategic calculations. the operation, shrouded in secret and moral controversy, continues to provoke debate and reflection on the price of technological and scientific advancement. This act of expunging or overlooking their Nazi histories was a pragmatic yet controversial decision driven by the strategic imperatives of the Cold War. The GIOA often found itself in a delicate position, facing scrutiny from this geopolitical maneuvering sometimes took precedence over the pursuit of justice for war crimes for U.S. space and defense programs. This marked a significant turnaround from the days of Operation Crossbow, where Allied forces targeted V-2 production sites. The operation extended beyond rocketry. Hubert Strughold, known as the father of space medicine, was another high-profile recruit, despite later allegations of war crimes related to human experimentation. Strughold made significant contributions to the U.S. Air Force's aerospace medicine program, preparing American astronauts for the conditions of space. His work was crucial, but his legacy remains tainted by his past associations. Operation Paperclip was not without its critics. The ethical implications of employing former Nazis, some of whom among the most notable recruits was Werner von Braun, a former member of the SS and the technical mastermind behind the V-2 rocket program, the world's first long-range guided ballistic missile. Von Braun's journey from Peenemünde, the site of his wartime research, to a pivotal role in the American space program, epitomizes the operation's complex legacy. Von Braun and his team were initially stationed at Fort Bliss, Texas, where they worked on rocket technology for the U.S. Army. Their expertise played a critical role in developing the Redstone rocket, which propelled. The impact of these networks extends beyond the historical and into the cultural realm. They have inspired numerous books, films, and conspiracy theories, underscoring the enduring fascination and horror with this dark chapter of historias. The ashes of World War II settled a covert operation unfolded not on the battlefields, but in the hushed corridors of power. Operation Paperclip, a secretive and morally ambiguous chapter in post-war history, began its mission to recruit Germany's most brilliant scientific minds for America's benefit during the burgeoning Cold War, officially approved by President Harry Truman in Selman. And ideological reasons welcomed many former Nazis. Brazil, Paraguay, and other South American countries also became refuges for these individuals. Perón's regime, sympathetic to fascist ideologies, provided an ideal haven for Nazis seeking to rebuild their lives away from Europe. The Ratlines and Odessa network not only facilitated the escape of war criminals, but also he lived in Brazil under the alias Wolfgang Gerhard and died in 1979, his true identity discovered only after his death. The Ratlines operated through various means, from forged documents and passports to discreet transport arrangements. The roots often originated in the chaos of post-war Europe, threading through countries like Austria and Italy. The Vatican has been a subject of controversy in this context, with allegations of its involvement. Though this remains a matter of debate and conjecture, the involvement. These roots were aided by a motley crew of collaborators, including sympathetic clergy members, former fascists, and even some foreign government officials. Notable among these was Bishop Alois Hudel, a Catholic bishop based in Rome, who is alleged to have assisted numerous Nazis in their escape. One of the most infamous figures to have escaped through these networks was Adolf Eichmann, the architect of the Holocaust. Eichmann was spirited away to Argentina, where he lived under a pseudonym, until his dramatic capture by Israeli Mossad agents in 1960. His capture and they set a precedent for future international trials, including those for war crimes in Yugoslavia and Rwanda. Telford Taylor, an American prosecutor at the trials, emphasized their historical significance, stating that 4 great nations flushed with victory and stung with injury stay the hand of the shadow of Adolf Hitler, Heinrich Himmler, and it is one of the most significant tributes that power has ever paid to Resoin. The aftermath of World War II, as the world grappled with the revelations of the Holocaust and the Devastation of war. A clandestine network was actively operating, aiding in the escape of Nazi war criminals. This covert operation, known as the Odessa Network and Ratlines, was a complex web of routes and contacts that facilitated the flight of Nazis from Europe to South America and beyond. Estimates suggest that thousands of Nazis managed to escape via these networks, though the exact number remains uncertain. The term Odessa, an acronym for Organisation der Emiligen Ensengeherigen, was believed to have been established by former members of the SS, the elite corps of the Nazi Party. This shadow organization was said to have been formed with the T and evasion that allowed some of history's most heinous criminals to vanish into the night. The trials were a melting pot of legal traditions, blending elements of both Anglo-American and continental legal systems. The proceedings were translated simultaneously into English, French, Russian, and German, making it one of the first major trials with such a level of linguistic complexity. This linguistic feat was achieved through the use of innovative technology and a team of skilled interpreters. The prosecution. In the wake of the devastating Second World War, a historic judicial event unfolded in the city of Nuremberg, Germany. The world was introduced to the concept of genocide through these trials, with accounts of the systematic extermination of Jews, Romani people, and other groups. Films from liberated concentration camps showing the inhumane conditions and the scale of the atrocities left an indelible mark on the courtroom and those following the trials worldwide. Chief Prosecutor Robert H. Jackson famously stated, "The wrongs which we seek to condemn and punish have been so calculated, so malignant, and so devastating that civilization cannot tolerate their being ignored." One of the most significant outcomes was the establishment of the principles of the Nuremberg Code, a set of ethical guidelines. The Nuremberg Trials, held from November 20, 1945 to October 1, 1946, were a series of military tribunals that marked a pivotal moment in international law. This unprecedented series of trials prosecuted prominent leaders of Nazi Germany for heinous crimes that had shaken the conscience of humanity. The trials took place in the Palace of Justice, a location chosen for his mission is not just one of retribution, but a crusade to ensure the world never forgets the atrocities committed. Wiesenthal's pursuit of justice sees the capture of key figures like Eichmann, the so-called architect of the Holocaust, who is snatched from his Argentinian hideout in 1960 and brought to trial. But the question lingers in the air like a persistent fog: how many more evaded capture their crimes, fading into the annals of history? As among these are names etched in infamy: Adolf Eichmann, Josef Mengele, Klaus Barbie. Men responsible for unspeakable atrocities, now desperate to evade the justice that beckons them. This is the era of the Ratlines, clandestine escape routes weaving through Europe to far-flung destinations like Argentina, Syria, and Egypt, orchestrated by networks of sympathizers and facilitated by organizations like the Vatican and the Red Cross. These routes served as a lifeline for those fleeing the noose of retribution. How did these notorious figures slip through the fingers of justice, and who were the shadowy figures aiding their flight? Anne Frank poignantly remarked, "What is done cannot be undone, but one can prevent it from happening again." Symbolic significance and logistical suitability. Joseph Goebbels loomed over the proceedings, although they had evaded justice through their self-inflicted demise in the war's final days. Göring notably was often vocal during the trials, defiantly defending the actions of the Nazi regime. Presented a staggering amount of evidence, including harrowing witness testimonies and extensive documentary records for human experimentation. This was in response to the inhuman medical experiments conducted on prisoners by Nazi doctors led by figures like Karl Brandt and Victor Brack. Vengeance and voluntarily submit their captive enemies to the judgment of the law, intent of creating a sanctuary for fugitive Nazis, a place where they could evade justice and perhaps even plot a resurgent subsequent trial in Jerusalem, brought international attention to the issue of Nazi fugitives. of figures like Hootle and others associated with the Vatican has been documented, highlighted the complex geopolitical realities of the post-war world. August 1945, the operation marked a dramatic shift in post-war policy, prioritizing scientific gain over denazification efforts, both governmental and public sources. Over 1,600 German scientists, engineers, and technicians were brought to the United States under Operation Paperclip, a move that had profound implications. The first live nuclear ballistic missile and later launched America's first satellite, Explorer 1, marking a pivotal moment in the space race, were implicated in war atrocities, sparked debates within the U.S. government and among the public. Marshall Space Flight Center and becoming a symbol of the U.S.'s space ambitions.